Hello and welcome to the Faith Building Podcast with your lovely and amazing hosts, Vladi Kuna.
Norman Gräter. Hi, guys.
If you're watching us, you're probably aware, and if you have a good memory, and that you have for sure, they're wearing the same stuff. So either they have only a few outfits to wear, or they don't care, or they just recorded the next session after the last one. And this is exactly what happened. Vladi had a brilliant idea. She said, we should speak about or continue the topic we had in the last episode, because sometimes the people that are closest to us know us least. Other people, good friends, colleagues, co-workers, whoever, know us much better. And I totally agree. I have this discussion with Anke so often, where she says, tell me something, what's bothering you, what's on your mind? And I think, not that much. But if I rewind my day, I was in a mastermind with Jonna and Vladi. I was talking to Orlando and some other team members, or to a friend. And I basically already shared some stuff. And based on the situation and the vibe in the Zoom room or wherever we are, you just talk about stuff. But then your partner shows up and you basically have nothing to talk, or you don't even want to share it because maybe there's a lack of trust for whatever reason. And you say, if I share that with you, you have this as a weapon against me or throw this towards my way. We have different reasons and ideas why we don't share stuff. And in my case, and this should not be an excuse, I'm happily sharing everything in podcasts, on stages, with our Caribbean Rebels, with our Monday community, in books, everywhere. I am an open book. And I also can remember that Anke sometimes comes and complains and says, why don't you share stuff with me? And I say, I share all the stuff that I learned, that I'm involved, what I think, basically with all other people. But this does not give her the feeling of she's special. But I'm not holding stuff back. It's just like, I share it freely everywhere. And that's why Vladi came up and said, sometimes the people that are closest to us have the least idea who we truly are, because we choose for whatever reason to share stuff with other people, or not even with other people and with ourselves. But I don't think that. And especially nowadays, I know of one or two people, they have a new best friend, and it's called ChatGPT. They talk to ChatGPT every day, and they share everything with ChatGPT. And that's totally okay. Vladi, did we speak about this scientific research they did about when people are unhappy, what would help them? I don't think so. I saw this in the newsletter of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Very interesting. They had three groups, group of students, and they said when the students were unhappy, what could help them to come out of the unhappiness? Solution one was they speak to an AI, and the AI, I think, was called Steve, for maybe 4 weeks. The second group was chosen another student they did not know, so they spoke to a stranger, but a real person, but they did not know yet. And the third group just wrote in their diary their thoughts and ideas. And after those maybe 4 weeks, they came back and they found out now which of those three groups is more happy than before, because it was, how can you get out of unhappiness? And guess what? The one group that felt more happy than the other two groups, and we all might guess wrong, is the second group, where real people talked to strangers. And you said, but they were strangers. But they were real people. And now there came one sentence, and that's the total killer that I never thought about. They wrote, probably you thought it was the AI, Steve, because Steve has great values, great opinions, great help.
I didn't.
Probably not. Vladi and AI are like that, like Vladi's on the outside. Yeah. No, the reason is so obvious if you know the answer. And this brings us back to truth. Probably you thought AI can solve everything. Yeah, it's a great pocket coach, basically. But the one thing that makes it not so helpful at the end of the day is the fact that AI needs nothing. AI gives you everything, gives you every answer, but it needs nothing. It's a program that starts running if you have a question or something to analyze. With a stranger, you come into a conversation, and at one point, even if you have some burden on your heart, you realize, the other person also has something. Now you can swap positions and you offer some help as well. And this is what makes us humans. And the AI, at least so far, does not do that. I mean, it would be silly. You have AI on your laptop and the AI says, "Oh, I'm in love with this other AI, but he or she does not reply. What should I do?" And now you consult your AI. You would say, I don't pay money to consult a program that just plays fakey stuff. So therefore, probably it's not being programmed like that, even though I think it's programmed already ridiculous. If you ask, how was your day? The AI replies, "Oh, I did sports in the morning and I felt quite good. Oh, I have goosebumps." Whenever my ChatGPT writes me, when I write a newsletter, "Oh, Norman, now I have goosebumps." So I think, yeah, right. I don't buy that, but very nice that you write that. But going back to our main topic, sometimes our closest people have the least idea who we truly are. Why is that, Vladi?
I go straight to the example you show, and which is the truth. It's easier to let go when we talk to a stranger. Do you know why? For one single reason. They know as judgmental as all the people who know us. Because if you tell them something, they are listening to you. Like, this is why coaching really works. It's really that it's that good coach. If you choose the right coach, it's not that the coach is going to give you something you don't have. No, you don't actually. You just become more receptive to connect to yourself and find your own answer. Because that's how we humans program. So we are afraid of judgment. Now, when you tell your close people that same thing that you told strangers, the stranger doesn't know your life and the whole history and all these things that's been happening. The stranger's looking at that situation you're telling them, the story you're telling them, and they helping you with that story. Neutral. Whereas if you tell it to your husband, wife, best friends and stuff, they automatically opinionate it based on everything they know about you and life, but it's their own opinion of you. And that's why I really suggested this topic, because it was not in a bad way, but like we were talking about how we smile and how really, if you came to our real life, what would people talk about? And ever since I was at school, people call me Sunshine. Well, if you like Peter was like, you're always smiling, you're always with all the people and stuff, but not here. I said, because we come home and we're dealing about problems with kids, problems with, like things, or what goes wrong, what doesn't go wrong. We're discussing holidays. One wants to go there, the other one wants to go and lie on a beach. I'm always like, I want to climb and hang in the mountains. Like all these kind of conversations we have, they are conversations you have to discuss. You have to come to a point where you both agree on something. It's not a stranger who just listens to your full story with no judgment and lets you speak whatever you want to speak. Those people are already injecting, though some of them often don't even let you finish the sentence and already giving you something. It's like, just let me, so you actually never fully express yourself. So the fear of judgment is the part that actually makes us very easygoing with talking to strangers, because they don't know your life, they don't know where I live, especially when you're on a holiday. Oh my God, you can go on a holiday or meet someone. When we travel to the speaking engagements or, do the webinars and stuff, you often meet like-minded people. They don't know you. You can say whatever you want. Not that you're lying. I'm not saying that, but you're presenting your way, how you feel in that moment. You don't need someone next to it who's going, "Oh, but yesterday you didn't do it, and last week you've done that." And you're like, "Oh my God, can you just breathe?" And that is how we perceive, especially in personal development. I remember Bob Proctor, he was saying that my webinars, and he had a full room of people, and they used to be considered as divorce webinars. Because why? Because people came there, and one, if we're talking about couples, partners, some kind of close business partners and stuff, one gets inspired, takes action, and decides to grow. The other doesn't. And the more and longer you both go with the way they decided, they actually growing apart. Why? Because energetically, vibrationally, you're choosing. This is why lots of marriages are amazingly working to a certain point. And this is not a discussion about marriage, but I want you to just pay attention to the core message, which is, what happens to us. If you go to one of the episodes, we talked about Wayne Dyer and his beautiful theory on what happens to female and male around the 40. It can be between 36 and 45, really. It get kind of scale. We all energetically change, every single one of us, and our priorities change, our focus changes. So for for female, when number one was always family. They wanted to be safe and marry a guy who can look after them. And, like the focus is completely different. Whereas then something changes and it's a personal growth. And now we were talking often, and I will bring that, it's that feeling when you're talking to an AI. And, this really gets me annoying. Lately, I was like, you give it an instructions. And in fact, I'm upgrading my skill. I've told myself I will train myself to really understand AI in a professional way so I can actually do a great job and, really learn the skill and learn to use it correctly, because that also helps my perception, which is always funny both ways. But really you have that. So it answers back. I was like, well, no, I didn't ask. I meant this way, because you assume that ChatGPT, let's just talk about ChatGPT, you assume they already know you because you already created certain conversations. No, they don't. They just, like Norman said, they're programmed, they're pulling out data. And you sometimes go, I've seen this with clients as well. So I'm not just saying it I actually am saying it as a fact. Whether it's truth, that's again, go back to last week's episode on truth. But you then ask it, and then it actually talks back to you saying, oh yeah, of course, because it gives you that answer as a solid answer. And you're like, well, actually, I don't like it because I'm like this. You haven't considered me as the true identity architect, and this is not how I teach stuff. And it actually kindly and beautifully says to you back, of course, Vladi, we need to consider this. Well, that thing wouldn't know it unless I keep triggering it, and this conversation becomes frustrating and cold because it's just the data. Whereas you talking to a stranger, you are maybe lack of explaining yourself the same way I was explaining, not really fully explaining myself to an AI. That's why it was giving me that answer. But that stranger picks on your energy. They already know where you had it. They can feel you. So they already, without have to go through these 5 frustrating conversations because you're not extracting it correctly or it doesn't really feel what you want, the person can feel you. If you're talking to the right person, they actually feel you. And they already having the energy and the flow of the conversation is different. Now, this is not to say that, some people say, oh, but I'm using AI, I'm using it perfectly fine. That is fine. And we as well, we use AI for certain things, and it can produce an amazing sort of especially analytics and combine things for you. It's much more efficient than humans because, by the time you read all the 5 papers and put them together, this thing scans them. And if you instruct it well and you really know how to work with it well, it is life changer. But it's not personal. It's not feeling you. It will never feel you. So this is where we just have that kind of human connection. It is the same as you have a connection to animals, to nature. That kind of connection cannot be created anywhere else. It's just what it is. It's a universal human laws. Universal laws. It's the journaling that Norman faced as well. It's sometimes when you keep talking to lots of people without, sit with your own thoughts as well. Sometimes journaling helps as a second choice because you can then find the pattern of what you're saying without, what if you tell this person and that person and that person, and within a month they're actually creating, how people are judgmental, they're thinking of opinion, and then once you say something out there, it's out there. Can you change it? No. Can we change? Yeah, you can always. I look at my videos on YouTube and 8 years ago and I'm like, oh, I said that. Because that's the best I could do when I was there. And my social media team said, well, you should delete it. I said, no, I want people to see my growth. I was that silly to actually say that. Now, if there's something that is really incorrect, I will delete it, because what if somebody just hears that and not my whole journey and take it as the truth? But we are growing as humans. And at every point, we're at a different level of understanding. We have a different consciousness developed. And that is the key. So people around you, if you're in self-development, you're reading, you're understanding, you're in your own, the person you spend the most time with is you. So the way you changing your beliefs, your limitations, the way you perceive yourself, the changes you make, you feel very good about yourself. Like in personal development, the whole point of personal development is actually grow yourself, nothing else. Grow yourself, feel better, change your own self-image, change your beliefs, not somebody else's. It's all about you. But people misperceive actually what the industry does. So go to you. What are you changing? And then people around you cannot understand. Like Norman really pointed it well. I think if my family went online, they will find out more about my daily life than actually I tell them every single day. Why? Because this is what we do. This is how we interact with people and clients, and that's what we choose to do. And then you don't want to repeat everything at the end of the day because it feels like, well, actually, you know what, tick, I already done it. And it's not to be selfish to say, well, I don't want to share with you, but I can totally feel like Anke, or, you know, like how the partner can feel like, well, everyone else knows. It almost feels like the rest of the world knows you more than I do. And it sometimes may actually feel that way, but it's not how it feels inside. So, you know, like the effective communication somewhere is when you work on yourself and on your growth and how you perceive things. People will judge you, and there will be a very close part of the friends who will completely misunderstand what it is we do, like misunderstand us, what we want to do with life and how we're coping, because it looks like selfish to other people. And that's fine too, you know, like we all at the journey where we perceive things differently. Once you raise your awareness, you start understanding how this world works, how your life works, how you can change yourself to live much better and fulfilled life. And guess what? You will now see everything completely differently. Back to normal.
A different pair of glasses. When you started talking, I thought about a book, and I'm not sure which book and what the author was. He said and suggested, and Vladi basically said that in her own words, never ever tell any relationship or personal problems to family members. And the reason is so obvious, because they won't forget. If you tell your family members, say, oh, my mother is my best friend, and you tell her about the jerk husband or wife you have, and let's say after half a year, everything is back on track and you're in love again, you found each other again, the mother did not forget, right? So whenever you come to have a coffee or a barbecue, you can see in the mother's eyes like, the jerk, would like to kill you. So never ever tell your family members personal issues with your partner, because they will never forget. Stranger, like Vladi said, nobody cares. Like if you tell the lady at the gas station about your personal problems, you won't see her again. She has no own agenda, no topic, no nothing. But the people that are very close, they usually do. Now the question is, if we realize that the person close to us are sometimes the person that knows least of us, it would be very easy to say, then tell the person just a little bit more about yourself. And there's a reason why we don't do that, and the reason varies from A to Z. And this would probably take another 5 podcasts to talk about all the possible reasons. Now look at the solution. And I was reminded while I listened to Vladi of Dale Carnegie, and he was called the world's greatest communicator. And back in the days when he was alive, one journalist lady heard that as well, and heard that Dale Carnegie should be the world's greatest communicator. And therefore, she wanted to write an article and find out why he is called the world's greatest communicator, because I think she was in doubt a little bit and thought, I will check that out. She had a garden party, invited Dale Carnegie. He really showed up. She opened the door and said, oh, Mr. Carnegie, nice that you're here. I heard you're the world's greatest communicator. Tell me, why do people think that you are the world's greatest communicator? And Dale Carnegie smiled and said, indeed, this is a very interesting story, and I'm so happy to share that with you. But before I do that, and then he pointed out a picture that was hanging on the wall. This picture by the painter, I forgot the name, of, let's say Pablo Picasso. Where did you get this? This is amazing. And the lady turned around and then started to talk 45 minutes about the picture. And the only thing Dale Carnegie did was said, wow, oh, okay, interesting. And after 45 minutes, he said, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. Unfortunately, I have to go. I have another meeting, but it was very nice meeting you, and I wish you a lovely garden party. And he left. A couple days later, when the article appeared in the newspaper, She wrote, "Yes, indeed, Dale Carnegie is the world's greatest communicator." And as you know, the true story, he did not even talk. He was just interested in the other person. Therefore, if you're the person and you have someone at home or in your close surrounding and say, they're not opening up, they're not telling me stuff, do you think if you approach them and say, why don't you tell me about your day, that the other person is happy to share? And like Vladi also said, then they start talking, and after 2-3 sentences of talking, you just jump in and say, what, you met this horrible person again? And you totally kill the flow.
Yeah.
Can you see why the other person is not sharing openly and freely whatever is on their heart? Because you just stop them on the track. But if you would act like Dale Carnegie, you would ask questions, you would be interested, you would be open, and you shut your mouth. The only thing that comes out is, wow, yes, oh, okay, tell me more. No judgment, no, yeah, but last week you told me. Why did you call him or her again? You said 3 weeks ago you're not interested in it. Yeah, but this time it was different. You're just not standing up for your truth. Are you interested what's on my mind? Yes, but you have a stupid mind. And we know conversations like that. Is it very obvious why the other person does not share, or rather shares with the opposite and outside world? Yes. Yes. You are the one that can change it. So maybe you want to just stick closer to Dale Carnegie and his ideas and just ask questions, be interested rather than talking yourself, because as we already told you multiple times in the past, use your mouth and the 2 ears proportionally. God gave you 1 mouth and 2 ears. Use them proportionally. Listen more than you speak. But there comes the whole issue. We have been trained to speak, but we have never been trained to listen. So if you adapt this great tool of communication, listening and being interested, then you can pull out the best of the other person that you probably until yesterday complained and said, oh, they're sharing everything with the world, but not with me. Just try that out. Ladi, what are your
I'm
final
going to start with, I love what you said, Norman, and I'm going to start, but start first as well. We always have this expectancy for the partner. We don't like things, right? Whatever it is, we just don't like something and we expect them to change it. Oh, I want you to be kinder. I want you to be better. I want you to come up with the date. Oh, I want you to change before. And this is not how it works. And I want really, it's if you're unhappy with something. So if you have a partner who's in personal development and you feel everybody knows about them, or it doesn't have to be personal development, anywhere. It actually happens in the office. I mean, when I used to work in London, in the corporate world, it was exactly the same. I would be telling a mini stories with my colleagues by the coffee, and then you have clients, and every time something is triggered, then you each pull a story in it on your past experience. Then you pop into a pub for a beer after a crazy busy day. Like your head is like this with clients. The last thing you want to is come home and just wait and go that. However, there might be a wife who's been having a really crazy day with the kids, pulling her hair, and really needs you, or a husband. It doesn't matter. It's now even husband, wives, whichever is, like bring it to your story. And then feel the other person as well. Say, if I was in the other person's shoes, because we tend to be sometimes a little selfish. I'm going to put my hand up. Yes, I'm here on the call. I don't go and discuss things. And it really is the observing that changing my life. I'm not going to say change, because actually I haven't been the greatest observer and I haven't been the greatest. I've been only working intentionally focusing in the last year. I've been working on it for a while, obviously, because it's part of personal development. But since last summer, sort of after summer, I really put this into my daily practice, where I actually have it on my 6 list of the task I create for the next day. It's listening and observing is actually one of my tasks. Why do I put it there every day? Because it's still freaking hard. Some days are super easy. Some situations aren't. What I've noticed, especially in a business, when we sometimes say, well, I don't know, and I'm not sure how to make decisions, and with the investments and the health and stuff, if you become an observer everything comes to you. Everything right comes to you. It feels that the more truth, going back to the past episode, more truth comes to you than the noise. Because when you quiet down and you observe, you all of a sudden pay attention to those little things you've been missing all this time, that the noise is up. And then those are the things that actually change your vibe, and you think, oh, I need to look into this. Oh, can this be true? Oh, let me speak to this person. And you're doing it in a loving, gentle way. And then you're figuring, like, you're actually puzzling up the things around you, thinking, I can't believe that I've missed this. And you know how sometimes people say with their partners, well, I can't believe you married this partner and you didn't know that. Of course you did. But what happens to us, we're so in love that we ignore the whole thing. Or there is another scenario, which actually I never liked, but I know that that's another scenario, is where people say, oh, but he will change for me. Oh, she will totally change for me. It's even worse because you're expecting someone else to fit into your world and manipulate them into a marriage, or, and once we have a kids, and then lots of marriages are actually, because I work with couples, they trapped because that's how they base their decision upon. And then what? And we're back to the sentence, then what? And we can talk about relationships and problems next time, because I think that is a very hot topic. We do. But for now, I thank you guys. I'll hand it back to Norman to close, but really pay attention and become more observer and listener, because then it will give you much solid, truthful energy for you to make the right decision for you, not for anyone else, for you.
There's nothing more to add, my dear. We wish you a wonderful week, and here and see you again with relationship issues, problems, challenges, and tasks next week. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you.